Hello and welcome to FPL Have a Beer, where I invite you to have a beer and talk FPL. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. At the time of recording this, I'm on 99 subscribers, and it would be lovely to get the channel up to 100 subscribers in the first month that it started. So please like and subscribe, and it would mean the world to me if you do that. Okay, so on the channel, I'm doing a series of interviews called Meet the Manager / Content Creator interview series, where we ask one of our lovely FPL content creators about their experiences of content creation, their thoughts on FPL and mental health, which is a bit of a focus on the channel, and then we generally, towards the end, just have a bit of a general chat about FPL and how things are going this season. So for our 8th interview of the series, we have Elite Stevo of Elite FPL fame. Welcome to the channel, Stevo.
Gary, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
It's an honour to have you on. I also made my first guest appearance last week on your channel, Elite FPL, and you are probably my favourite, as you put it, independent content creator.
Yeah, I don't know why. I do hear you compliment me a lot, and I'm like, whenever I'm sweeping up the leaves at work, I'm like, really? It just baffles me when people genuinely do. It's like when people tell me that the Total Stevo podcast is their number one. You know, when Spotify do their Unwrapped.
This is your independent podcast for anyone who's not your non-FPL related content podcast.
That's correct. Yeah, it's just a self-deprecating look at my pathetic life. But anyway, so people actually have it as their number one Spotify Unwrapped, which is just mental. And when they put it by what they normally listen to, like, I don't know, Joe Rogan, Russell Brand, and various others, you're just thinking, this is just ridiculous. So,
I reckon your name is up there with Joe Rogan, and I can see your name in flashing.
Yeah.
Stevo, what I usually start the interview by is just asking you, I'm sure some people watching this will know who you are, but maybe not everyone. A bit of general information about yourself. Where did you grow up? Who do you support? What's your first memories of football? Stuff like that, really.
I keep doing office lines every time anybody asks me formal questions. Tell me about yourself, yeah?
This is an interview of you, Stevo. It doesn't work that way, mate.
So I grew up in a small little seaside resort called Torbay, specifically Paynton. And yeah, it's a very, very, very quiet tourist.
Whereabouts in the country?
In Devon.
Okay.
So it's East Devon, and it's a very, very popular tourist attraction in the summer.
Yeah.
But during the rest of the season, like most seaside resorts, they're dead, desolate, and basically none of the locals want to be in the area, let alone the tourists. So yeah, I've lived there for 33 years, and then I moved to London in 2017, and I've been in this house ever since. In answer to your question, who I support, it's Burnley. I don't really call myself a supporter in the sense of I don't actually go and watch them play. I can if I will if I can.
Why Burnley? The last time I watched, because they wouldn't be local to where you grew up, and they're not exactly Man United.
My dad, it was very similar to, so when Andy FPL Mode was on here, he said the line about you will support.
Mansfield and Man United?
No, that was the other lad. That was Tom. It was Andy was Man United in Yeovil.
Yeah, Yeovil.
I told you I knew more about the podcast than you. And I'm sure he said you will support Man United. You're not going to leave this house unless you're a Man United
that's what he said. Yeah,
so that's pretty much what happened. That's it. Yeah, and it pretty much happened with me when it came to my own dad, where he pretty much said, because when I was a kid, I don't know, year 4, I was wanting to play in the school football team, but they wouldn't allow you to join the training unless you had a football kit. And I wanted Man United because I was a Man United supporter, because they were the biggest club at the time. And my dad was like, nope, you're not going unless you're wearing Burnley. And then it was literally just put upon me to become a Burnley fan. To be completely frank with you, Gary, I didn't start liking football. I stopped liking football when I got to about the age of 14. 15, I became more obsessed with mountain biking. And I just stopped following football up until about, do you know what, I couldn't even tell you. And then it was, ironically, here's the irony, once, and we'll get onto it in a minute, I'm sure we will, once I started up my own fantasy football game, where I started getting back into football again, which would have been approximately 2004, 2005-ish.
So when you say game, was that a league or an FPL league?
I created no. I actually created my own actual fantasy football game.
Okay, you got to tell us what does this involve?
So with the Daily Mirror and the Sun, they would have their dream team or fantasy football team, whatever. And I was always never somebody that wanted to actually physically play because it was the ball ache of writing your application form out and sending off and whatnot. And I'm just thinking, no, I don't like this at all. And then one day I was like, do you know what? I'm going to ask the guys at Tesco if they'd be interested in playing that, but my version of the game instead, a more simplified version. And essentially, the way it worked was I would photocopy all the player prices, but the prices didn't matter in my version. It was just pick whoever you wanted, but you are not allowed to make any. It's essentially a zombie team.
Yeah.
So you can have anybody you want, but I think there was a limit of 2 players per team. I genuinely cannot remember now. It was so long ago. And then, I would then email the results once the teams came through and whoever participated in this work league, there was about 30 people. And I just emailed each week a report of exactly what happened in the world of football, who got the most points based on my own personal point scoring system. It was something it was something like if you got a red card, it'd be like -7 points.
Yeah.
If you scored an own goal, -5. If you scored, for instance, if your goalkeeper scored, I think I gave it like 20 points or something like that. It was.
I'm just imagining, Steve-O, do you know when you get like the should FPL given an assist or not? But instead of FPL, is Steve-O going to give that assist?
Well, my friend Glenn, I'll never forget. He basically said, "Do you give assists?" And I went, "Mate, I can only go off what the Daily Mirror results page when every Monday morning, I would go off the results page." And I would just see that Tevez has scored 2 goals and that's it. I have no idea who's got the assist or anything. They never
used to report that, did they, until recently?
No, that's exactly right. So it was just such a simple process. But my mate Glenn was just this game feels really biased. But it was only because he was losing. It's only because he was losing. If he was winning, he'd have been all right. But I do remember Glenn having a bit of a problem with it. But most people actually really enjoyed playing it, to be honest with you. They enjoyed getting the email every single Monday, I guess, and me telling exactly what happened. Just absolutely mental when I look back at it, thinking I did that.
Yeah. So are those your earliest memories of fantasy football as well? I guess they would be, wouldn't
they? Every time I listen into your show and I think, what is my earliest fantasy football memories? Because that's how I got into FPL, because my mate was just, you've been doing this I think I did it for 3 years.
It's a lot of work.
And my mate went, hey?
A lot of work, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's ludicrous. I put probably more time and effort into that than the whole of my time at school, to be honest with you. And this guy, Pete, just said, you're aware you can do this for free and everything's done for you. And I went, what are you talking about? Showed me this fantasy Premier League game and I went, this is free, you just have to do this. And he showed me everything and just like that.
When was that?
Cracked on. Well, my history says I started in 2010, 2011 or 2011. I'm just going to quickly bring it up here, actually.
About 15 years.
I know I've been playing it for, I can't even think now, Gary, why is this all slowing down for me? Just when you want the bloody thing to work. There we go here. 2011, 2012, I officially started.
A little bit under 15 years then.
Yeah, and so I must have been doing my own fantasy game for the 3 years prior to that, I guess. So, and then once we got into that FPL game, the only thing I remember is going round this guy called another Pete's house, and by pure coincidence, his tenant was Jason.
Right.
And I always remember being around Pete's house sat in front of his computer, picking our teams and making sure we're getting the right teams during the summer. And Jason coming down and saying to Pete, guys, remember, I've been working really late. I need my piece. And Pete was like, yeah, right, man. That was the first time I actually met Jason, would you believe?
So, let me context this a bit for the viewers. So my next question was going to be, so you've had your own league. You've been your own FPL game, basically, which I guess makes being a content creator seem easy. Then you've been a player for a while. And then what I usually ask is you're playing FPL, and then you decide, right, I'm going to create content. And I know, because I've heard the story before, I can't remember it identically, there's quite a complicated story behind Elite FPL involving Facebook and other things. So maybe you could just give us the history of that and Elite FPL, I guess, how you started off.
It's not really complicated, really. It was just we had our FPL league set up between basically all our friends that worked at the Paynton Tesco and the Torquay Tesco, and then some of our other friends like my mate Dan and a few others.
Big league.
Yeah. It was like a local league, but predominantly most people worked in the two big Tesco's down there. And I would every single weekday, so it would have been a Sunday going into Monday, I'd write up match reports and I'd be going through all the details about what people positions are and how many points it's taken them to get to whatever position they are within the mini league.
What are you writing this up for?
On Facebook.
On
just
Facebook.
Writing it to the people on.
You've got a Facebook
on Facebook.
Group?
Yeah. It wasn't at first. It wasn't a Facebook private group, but then it became a private one. Because people on my feed were getting sick to death of seeing me putting up these really long posts about, the Tiger Pumas or whatever are, top of the Torbay Elite Mini League.
Yeah.
And it was a cash mini league as well. And we just got loads of people really enjoying the work. And then one day, so this would have been 2014-ish. Because what I find so fascinating about the world of YouTube, and this is what I can't wait to talk to you about, is that the reality is that it's only since coronavirus that a lot of content creators, forget FPL, I'm talking any hobby you can imagine. Coronavirus was when everybody went, I'm bored at home. What do I like doing? Oh, I like FPL. Oh, I like planes. Oh, I like trains. Oh, I like basketball. Whatever their hobby was, I'm going to create videos basically. In fact, the popular ones for my genre was headbanging videos and these reaction videos. They all popped off during the coronavirus time. And so back in 2013-14, doing any form of video content was very, very, very unusual. Especially
I interviewed Joe earlier on today, and he was saying, he was only, even the Scoutcast was only really just starting up in a video format around about that time, when the 2014, I imagine.
And I was part of it. Well, not directly part of it, but I remember I've got an interesting story actually about them guys. It's not interesting. I'm not going to go on Piers Morgan and talk about it, but I'll get onto that bit in a minute, because I just remember that video format content was very rare. But my friend Dan, who works he helps businesses with their social media, he did a video about some company, and I went, he's really good. Dan is really good on the phone here. Like, he's really good on video, and he comes across really, really eloquently about what he's talking about, and very passionately. I've noticed in the world of whatever I was into at the time that there's a tiny market for video format type content. I like what Dan's doing here. Does Dan want to start recording me and him? Because rather than me writing up all this stuff, would it just be easier for me just to talk to him on camera? So we went to his house. And again, this would have been about 2013, 14, 15-ish. We just went round his house. He's in his tiny little bedroom. We bought one of these Poundland shitty phone holders. It was awful. And we would spend about half an hour alone trying to get the intro right. It was, we'd even be 30 minutes into us chatting to one another, and then he'd cock it up and he goes, "Oh, we're going to have to start again." And we'd have to start the whole thing again. Yeah, but none of this, all this editing stuff, you couldn't get it for free. You had to pay for it all. So we're like, we're going to have to somehow, get this really bang on the money.
That's real perfectionism, though, for considering you're only putting out the video to a very small group of people. That's real.
Oh, yeah.
That's real. Yeah,
perfectionism. Yeah, Dan is a real perfectionist, and I've got real silly OCD about things, and we all have these minor OCD things, and we would just be sat in his little bedroom chatting away and whatnot, and we'd just upload the videos to Facebook, but they were taking approximately 24 hours to upload. I couldn't even tell you how long the videos were. Yeah. And at the time, I always remember, because I was kind of quite a popular is a bit of a strong word. I wasn't popular, but I was a renowned fantasy football scout user.
Yeah, you know when we talk before, yeah.
That's right, yeah. And any time I put some information in there, pretty much thanks to TalkSport, because at the time I was like one of the biggest TalkSport fans when it was good. And I was getting all this information about football and transfers, and I'd upload it up to Fantasy Football Scout, and they'd always put the green hot topic or whatever it was, green highlighted thing. And I remember when Mark and Granville released their podcast, and we're talking. It was I know it was Call of Duty Black Ops 3, because I remember specifically I was playing the zombie map Transit. I was obsessed with Transit. And I always remember I think it was Wednesday they released the podcast. It was my favourite time of the week, because it was like, right, I'm going to have an hour to listen to I think this must have been the first podcast I ever listened to. I'm going to listen to these guys chatting about fantasy football, and I'd be playing Call of Duty Zombies while listening to these guys talk about fantasy football. It was fantastic.
I don't think anyone who wasn't around listening to content at that time can't imagine how novel that was to have two guys talking about, because now you've got it every single time you turn on YouTube there's a new video, but it was really special back then.
Yeah, because I remember when Who Got the Assist started up. I specifically remember when they started, and I remember when they did not a competition, but they were trying to find out how they could get what name they could come up with, and also their intro. And then they finally found, I think it was one of the host's girlfriends did the intro or something like that. I can't bloody remember now, but I remember when they started around maybe, I don't know how long, maybe a year later or so. And I started listening to them a lot as well. And I always remember, Gary, being on the Fantasy Football Scout site and saying, these guys need to do video format content regarding what's happening in the football. And I'll never forget people shooting me down and saying, essentially, you're an idiot, no one's interested in this, what you're talking about. Oh yeah, I was ridiculed for it, essentially. I remember I even emailed Joe, would you believe? I mean, he wouldn't remember any of this. I remember emailing Joe and saying, I've got this huge idea for you guys, and I wrote it all out, my plan and everything, and it was just like, thanks for your interest, but this isn't going to happen. Fast forward, 10 years, and it's like every single channel wants to do what I have suggested, basically, or they are doing what I says. Because I'll let you into a secret, Gary. I think we were the first channel that did deadline streams, and I'm not even making that yet. Yeah, for real. So we went on and did our Facebook thing, and then Jason got in contact with Dan, because Jason was doing, when I say really well at the game, he was phenomenal. He's
in your league as well?
Jason, my co-host. Yeah.
He was in your league, your Tesco's.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So this would have been, we're fast forwarding now to 2017-18 season, or 2018-2019. One of those two. I think it was 2016-2017. No, 2017-2018 it would have been. And he was something like 89th in the world.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
It was ludicrous. And he got in contact with Dan, because he knew Dan. and he said, "Look, I really, really like what you and Steve are doing. Is there any chance I could just get involved?" And I'll never forget, I was walking home from the gym, and this was like the first month that I was living in London. I was walking home from the gym, and I remember Dan voice messaging me it, and I was just like, "Yeah, we've got to start talking to Jason. Why not?" And we had this really long conversation afterwards. And I always remember saying to Jason, "Is there an easier way to upload this stuff? Like, could we upload it to YouTube?" And he just went, "Yeah, of course we can."
Yeah.
I was thinking, all right, then let's just do that. But how long is it going to take to upload to YouTube? And we didn't know at the time. So at the time, it was taking quite a while to upload.
Onto Facebook?
And then No, to YouTube at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, it was uploading to YouTube because we made a decision that, look, it's taken almost 24 hours to upload a video of me and Dan chatting about football. There's got to be an easier way. Why don't we just put it on YouTube and create a link? So that's what we did. We just uploaded to YouTube and we just put the link into the Facebook group, and that was it. Just whoever wanted to watch it. But it was taking so long again. So we were just like, what if we went live, Jay? What would happen if we went live? Would it just upload instantly? And Jace went, "Yeah, of course it would." And I went, "Well, next time we do this video stuff together, shall we just do it live instead?" And he went, "Yeah."
It sounds like Jason's rolling a lot of this. He's saying, "Yeah, of course."
Well, Jason's very tech savvy.
Yeah.
Like, he makes James, the producer of FPL Juice, look like me. Jason is phenomenal when it comes to
whenever you're both streaming, the area he's in looks like some sort of high tech spaceship carrier or something.
Yeah. He created his own studio.
Oh, wow.
Spent a lot of money, and he's created his own studio. It's phenomenal.
A lot of that come from him being a musician?
No.
Okay.
No, that was the musician side of things came later.
Post,
because that was made in, I think it was either just before coronavirus or during it. I really could not tell you. It's quite a recent thing. He spent quite a lot of money on it, and by pure coincidence, he then started using that as his place of work. And he was working for I don't want to go into too much detail because it's not my place to say. It's up to him really what's revealed. But he was working for some very large organization, shall we say, in America, and doing very, very well. Let's just say that. And basically, he was able to quit his full-time job as a graphic designer, and he was then able to go into self-employment, and he did very well, shall we say, from the self-employment side of things until certain things happened where, again, it's not my place to say, but certain things happened where everything just turned to shit, shall we say.
Yeah.
And yeah, we went live on YouTube, and I'll never forget just seeing names like commenting on our stuff, and we didn't even know.
Did they have a live chat then when you went live?
It did have a live chat, not on screen, but people. Jason was telling me and Dan that there are people commenting, and I was like, "What do you mean there are people commenting? I don't understand." And he went, "Yeah, there's this guy called the Daily Llama, so who's now known as FPL Llama, who does his channel, the Casuals. He was watching us every week. We had a guy called Aman Dillon who was watching us every week, and there was another guy called Gabriel Derop, and there's a few others that were just watching us every single week. We thought they were trolls, Gary. We thought these people were taking the piss out of us because we couldn't believe that. Why on earth are people watching three random blokes in their small little bedrooms chatting about football?
And when you're talking, is it still about your league, work league?
Yeah.
You're not talking general FPL here. They're listening
No,
to some guys
we're talking like we do now
Hmm.
about football and how it impacts FPL, but we weren't looking at how it impacts FPL. We were just looking at how does this impact the Torbay Elite League?
Yeah.
How do we help Jason do? Because we were helping him. We were trying to help him win FPL.
Right.
That's the thing.
So
And
going forward, how does that transform into Elite FPL is now? Because for anyone who's not aware of Elite FPL, you are quite different, as in you basically have, I guess the Torbay League would have turned into the Elite FPL League, and you now spend a lot of time talking about which your members can join, and you now spend a lot of time talking about that league as well as football in general. Is that a fair reflection of?
Yeah, the Torbay Elite League still exists,
Right.
but we don't talk about it anymore. Other than me and Jason may make a point and say, "Oh, Steve-O, I'm second now. You're second, or whatever." But to be honest with you, we don't really focus on any of that. We focus on the YouTube chat league.
Yeah.
But we've it's really, really weird with Elite FPL because it's gone from, and I will discuss things which I've personally discussed openly on the channel. So we hit when I say a peak, I mean, we were growing at a ridiculous rate in the this is literally just before coronavirus. We were just growing and growing and growing. And going on what you say a lot, which is the channels that were around back then, the only YouTube channel that I was even aware of was Andy. That was it.
Mm.
I knew of, obviously, the Scoutcast.
Hub.
I knew of Mark and Granville, and that was it. I didn't know about anything else. And who got the assist.
There would have been Hub around them, wouldn't it?
Personally, knowing what I know now, yes. But
yeah,
at the time, I really wouldn't have a clue.
It was a much more open market place, should we say, or a much more open content space.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was the odd. I mean, even you mentioned Davey FPL. I know he was around at that time as well.
Yeah. Nymph was around then, and she did a podcast. I was talking to her on.
Oh wow,
Twitter
I didn't know that. Okay.
I can't remember what it was called.
Well, I know she did the Wildcats.
The Wildcats, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, with three lads, wasn't it? And I think
Brett, J&O, and FPL tips.
He was really good. Was it J&O? Because he used to have a beer when he was
brilliant
streaming as well. So he was one of my heroes.
Yeah. It's so funny because you're now bringing back memories of these small little channels that were out there, and even at the time, Andy, like he was the only if you want to call it that, mainstream YouTuber out there that had the fancy graphics, shall we say?
Well, he had the scout link. He had the scout link as well to boost up things, didn't he?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, and I was always funny like you. I was always listening to his stream, not live, but on a replay at work.
That's what he
his Sunday ones, and I always found it really fascinating listening into Andy's streams and like, oh my God, people are asking questions, Gary. They're actually asking this guy things about FPL. And it was kind of slowly getting my head like, hold a minute here. This is what people want now. They want to talk about FPL, and everything just kind of mashes up into one when it comes to Elite FPL. Because once coronavirus came, our channel took a massive hit because if we give
people a scale here, so when I joined, you were on about 7,000 subscribers. I think that was just like within a couple of months of COVID. So is that sort of where? Why do you think the issue started then? What?
The reason being, off the top of my head, and I don't really want to go into too much detail per se.
Yeah.
But a lot of people kind of know it, is that we had a massive divide between a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
So what's really bad, I think one of the big pluses for Elite FPL, one of the big pluses is that our community is very, very strong. It's very similar to Planet FPL, funny enough. Very, very die-hard following.
Mm.
The downside, though, is that die-hard following gets offended a lot if one of the family members, shall we say, it doesn't like something what's going on and they want to have their say, and it causes ruckuses between groups. I mean, fast forward, 5 years, and there's literally a civil war between the Discord and our channel. You couldn't make it up, but we don't need to go into that. But at the time,
are there like
just
cliques
before,
then within the channel?
Oh yeah,
following? Right.
Yeah, there are people that cannot stand me. I know that for a fact. They hate anything I do.
Right.
But there's people that they love what Jason does and vice versa.
Right, right.
It's not particularly, I'll be honest, it's not nice knowing that people, I don't know of any other channel now that has a divide. Like FPL Mate, his community is his community.
Yeah.
Focal, his community is his community, and so on and so forth. But ours, because we make it so personal and it becomes so family-like, people are like, I mean, we had a recent case 2 years ago, or was it last year? I think it was last year, actually, where someone literally said, I'm not having Steve-O say that about me. Now, I wasn't actually talking about this person. I was talking about people in general.
Can I just say,
he was like,
Steve-O, for the viewers, because you will talk about the listeners, the member of your communities a lot during your videos, won't you?
Yes. Yeah, so I do name check.
Yeah.
But I wasn't actually personally attacking this attacking is a bit of a strong word, but I wasn't actually going out after this person. It was just a bunch of people in general. I basically said, the words were, you are an idiot if you choose to use your free hitting. Was it blank game week 19 last year or 29?
Yeah, the one where there was the one which was empty where I used it, so I'm an idiot. And then a lot of people saved it for the double game week a bit later on, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I said, you'd be an idiot if you used it. And then tossers like me still used it, because I then stupidly listened to advice from the guys on FPL Juice, because they were making a lot of sense. And I thought, yeah, they are right. This is the best time to use it, even though I was adamant to say not using it. And then with hindsight, we shouldn't have used it. But anyway, this person messaged me privately on Discord, sent me this essay about how offended he was. How dare you, blah, blah, blah. And then I heard that he was
just because he
raving
used
and ranting.
Just because he used the free hit in that week, or was planning to?
No, because I was calling people saying that they were idiots if they were going to use it, but this person was going to use it.
And you linked it to him in some way, but you didn't.
No.
Okay.
He just thought that it was a personal attack on him, even though it was just people in general. And he messaged me on Discord. He then went onto the Discord Hangouts and started mouthing off about me, saying, this is an outrage, how dare this, blah, blah, blah. And he's no longer with the community. He left, vanished.
Really?
Never seen him since. And this has happened a lot. And going back to the coronavirus days, this is what happened. We had a massive bust up with a lot of people. We're talking, and this may not sound like a lot, but it is a lot in the grand scheme of things. 10v10. You had, to be completely frank, you had the people on Jason's side, and you had the people on not my side, but were against Jason essentially.
But you and Jason aren't against each other here. This is some.
No. Me and Jason are not against each other.
Just one side that we want to see more of Steve, or one side me want to see more of Jason.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just sat in the middle of this because Jason's all in control of the production side of things. Basically anything that's digital, Jason's in charge of. And people weren't happy with what he was doing, but the people that were on Jason's side were defending him. And all these people just were like, fuck Elite FPL then, we're going. But these people that left were such huge supporters of the channel. We lost our advertisement, our unofficial, cheap advertisement, where whenever we went live, these people would just be bombarding X with Elite FPL's live, all this. And that caused a massive, massive war between everybody. And I'll never forget, during this period, it was just after Jim's. Funny enough, you telling me about what you sent me earlier regarding gyms after coronavirus. I'll never forget when gyms reopened and me and Jason had an hour and a half, because he rang me out of the blue and he said, we need to talk. And we had this hour and a half chat and I felt like crying. If I'm honest, I felt like crying because I was just like, fucking hell, man, this is really, really deep stuff about this channel. And then eventually we came to a a solid, what's the word I'm looking for here? Not conclusion. No, an agreement, I suppose, that me and him are going to work together, and these people that left the channel, essentially, goodbye. We're going to have to work with what we've got now. And don't get me wrong, it was the best decision that we did. But at the time, it was horrible. But since then, we're talking 2021, when did coronavirus? When did we come out of like all of that? I can't even remember what year it was.
The second lockdown, I think we really came out of it in mid 2021, I guess.
Yeah, so let's say from the 2021-22 season, I then had become, during the coronavirus era, shift leader at Tesco, which is basically you've got all the skills of the manager, but you're not a manager pay. And I was doing early mornings, so I was starting at 4 o'clock in the morning, having to wake up at 2:33. Couldn't do any streams with Jason, so it was all just solo stuff. Jason was working, basically when I was waking up, Jason was still working, and he wasn't going to bed till like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. So the best times he could stream was late at night, 9, 10 o'clock in the evening.
You basically got the complete opposite timetables then.
Yeah, pretty much. I couldn't stream with him, he couldn't stream with me. Mate, it was horrible. I would say it was horrible. I was really going for a tough time. There's actually a video. I could not watch it ever again. But there's a video of me in the graveyard, and I'm basically just pouring my heart out to the camera and just saying, I can't do this channel anymore. I can't do it.
I think I might watch this one.
Possibly, yeah. I can't do it. I'm at my lowest ebb. I can't stand my job. Doing these streams is just, and I was having a really bad season as well, which doesn't help. No. And I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. And yeah, that season 2021-22 was a real struggle. And I think we get a lot of comments from people. I say a lot of comments. Once or twice a week, we'll get a comment saying, bloody hell, you guys are still going. I remember you back from whenever it is. And yeah, it became a real struggle those next two seasons. But then this season, it's actually the complete opposite. Jason's now the one that's waking up at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning to do what he needs to do. Because I've now quit Tesco, yeah, and more better for me. Yeah. And I'm able to do, not necessarily late nights. I do have a cut-off. What is your cut-off point? I have a cut-off point as to where I want to start streaming, which is usually, I say, look, 7:30, 8 o'clock is when I kind of want to be starting. But any later, I'm just like, forget it. And yeah, it's been a real, the last 3 years, I think, for Elite FPL has been a proper struggle. But now, because Ray Qureshi has got on board, I'm really glad I got friendly with him. I'm glad he's come aboard now to help the channel out. Then there's Shane.
It's great to come on for an interview on Monday as well. So excited about that.
Ah, good. You messaged him, did you? Fantastic. That's great. That's going to be a brilliant interview. Yeah. So he kindly joined the show. He now does the Saturday night reactions. And then, to be completely frank, a massive shout out to FPL Juice that I started watching their stuff.
You're a massive fanboy of theirs, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I love their stuff. They've created a friendship group, which I never imagined I'd ever have, Gary. Because of their in-person way of doing things in the studio.
Joe was saying earlier, Steve-O, because I know you haven't watched it yet, he was saying whereas he feels Scout were the kind of pioneers 10, 15 years ago. Juice are probably that now. The pioneers now. I told you. I said, because you said on a stream the other day about me thinking that that's the future. And I had to clarify to you. I said, well, what I meant was his studio-based podcasts around FPL. Now, it's no coincidence that now I can't go into details, but let's just say FPL Juice has helped out these studio-based podcasts a lot. Yes. Let's just say that, okay? Well, those guys, I came across them at the back end of so right at the end of the
2022-23 season, I watched their final day of the season stream, which was me just sat in Brook Green Park. I'd just done my shift and I got these guys on. They had FPL Focal. There was Booner on there. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to tune in. And I was just like, why the fuck haven't I listened to these guys before? Where have these guys been all my life? Because it's just a bunch of blokes having a laugh about fantasy football and football in general in a really non-aggressive way and not throwing stats and tips down my face. It's just like David Brent says, yeah, having a laugh. And
you managed to go 50 minutes there without a David Brent almost. 45 minutes, that's impressive.
So I was like, these are amazing. And then during the summer of the 2023-24 break, I was watching their content, which they were doing, and it was the one with Yelena that really stood out. I don't know why. I just thought it was just so charming, the way Nick and Yelena bounced off one, because it was just them two. And I thought, these guys are brilliant, and I love doing history lessons. So I just went back through some of their videos, but I noticed there was a lot of...
When did they start?
Sorry, mate?
When did they start?
4 or 5 years ago now.
Oh, okay.
So it would have been... I would have thought about 2020, 2021, I'd guess.
Okay, so I guess they would have started when the lockdowns, when people could meet up again.
Yeah, so I then went back through their back catalogue and I saw live streams from pubs, and I legitimately watched every single second. I thought...
From pubs?
Yeah. The I keep calling it I keep forgetting what the bloody one's called now. For what FPL Meets does, but I was just like mesmerised by it. I was mesmerised by Ash and Nick and how they bounced off one another, and then there was James, their producer, and I was thinking, this is just incredible. Why is nobody watching this? Like, this is what I've been thinking in my head.
They still have quite low views. I agree completely. They still have quite low views now, though.
Well, I mean, again, I'm not going to go into details, but let's get real here. Very similar to Elite FPL. They're basically just... I mean, we are shadow banned. That's a fact with Elite FPL. Christ almighty, YouTube detest us. But FPL Juice are kind of bordering on that shadow banned type level, shall we say. And, I was just mesmerised. But the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because those guys, once I went into the studio for the first time, which I was absolutely shitting myself. In fact, no, I went to their 5-a-side soccer tournament they put on, the first one, and I was shitting myself when I went there. And I was never forget when I saw James, and I was like, oh my God, it's James, the producer, it's him. And he just came over, gave me the biggest hug, and he was just like, I don't believe it, it's Steve-O. Oh my God, I'm so happy to meet you. I'm really busy at the moment, but we've got a chat later. And I was just like, please, mate, you carry on. I know you're in charge of it. And then all of a sudden, I see Ash, and I was just like, oh my God, it's Ash. And he was just like, oh my God, it's Steve-O, fucking hell. And he was really busy, and he just went to shake my hand. It was this really weird, awkward exchange. And then all of a sudden, all these like people started coming to me, and they were like, oh my God, it's Steve-O. And they just like, shaking my hand, being perfectly polite and everything. And then all of a sudden, I was thrown into the spotlight, and I became the host of that day for about 4 hours. It was absolutely ridiculous. They then said to me about getting me into the studio. Basically, the rest is history, because those guys have created a friendship group, which, for me, talking about mental health, has really boosted, been boosted very highly because of these actual meetups with people in person regarding their community. It's been really, really good.
Still,
I don't even know why we brought that up, to be honest.
No, it's fine. I'm scrolling through my questions, because usually I have to prompt people, but you're covering a lot of the things I'd normally ask, which is brilliant. But okay, before there was, and I've got extra questions here I want to ask you as well. You describe yourself or yourselves as being independent content creators. and you know myself as well. What would you define as the difference between an independent content creator and a mainstream content creator? Yeah.
Well, I've stolen the line from Nick Trigger Lips. Right. For starters, what a great guy he is. He's another one that you need to interview. He is fantastic.
He replied in the comments yesterday, I'd love to come on, and then I commented again, and he's not got back to me yet. But hopefully,
yeah, he's not great with replies, but he is fantastic. I stole it from him, and I never knew what the terminology meant, and then I realised what it meant. And in answer to your question, it's channels which are doing it as a hobby. It's off their own. It's their own money, off their own back, and they're not being paid for it. Whereas obviously the main channels, it's their job.
Yeah.
And they have to do it. But they don't need... And
even if they're not, they've got a Patreon or they've got a hub. Well, you've got a Patreon, but they've usually got a sponsorship like the hub or whatever like that.
Yeah, they've got such a... They're basically... Not only are they backed by whatever sponsorships and Patreons and whatnot, they're also boosted by the fact that YouTube love what they do. Now... Again, I always make these points on our Patreon podcast. I make it clear on live streams. I'm going to make it clear here. This doesn't just apply to FPL. This applies to thousands upon thousands of different hobbies out there. And I always use the fitness industry as the prime example. But if you adhere to certain YouTube algorithm rulings, YouTube will just send you to the moon. And very similar to music, if you're in the mainstream music, the likes of Slipknot, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, etc., it doesn't matter what you do. You could literally put out one person playing guitar, and it's still going to get 1 million hits. Whether it's shit or not, it doesn't matter.
Slight rant, Steve, it really pisses me off.
It's your channel, you crack on, mate.
It really pisses me off now when you list. I watch quite a bit of true crime stuff, and it really pisses me off. Well, it's not even true, where they always bleep out the word rape or even sometimes
my brother's
sex.
like this, yeah.
And I'm like, but it is all to do with this YouTube algorithm, isn't it? Like they'll get shadow banned or whatever, or put down in the algorithm if they say those words, which to me is just ridiculous. Like, you know, channels that are talking about true crime.
Yeah, so one of my favourite vloggers, in fact, not one of mine, he is my favourite vlogger, Billy Mayhem. He does videos about underground death metal gigs, essentially. Okay. But I'm not talking underground death metal gigs that I go to. I'm talking the ones below that, essentially your local bands. Right. Even he says that he has to adhere to what YouTube's saying. He can't be himself. Right. He has to bleep out. And when you're watching it, don't get me wrong, he does a very good job at editing. But when you're watching it, you're like, oh, I'm losing. The worst thing they do is when they block out the music, because then you're not getting that organic experience. So they'll be in a rock club.
And they have to block out the music.
And they're blocking it, and you're like, but I don't know what you're moshing to. I don't know what you're dancing to. This is ridiculous. Yeah. And then they'll say at some point during some vlog or whatever, they'll say, but we can't play it because we just get instantly taken down. It's just like, fucking hell. Like, this is grim. You can't even just be yourself.
I mean, even when I upload one of these videos, which is just me and a bloke talking, it spends about 10 minutes checking it for copyright claims. The YouTube, algorithm thing. And I think, like, what possibly in here could be, copyright? It's two blokes' faces. You know what I mean? It's
well, unfortunately, YouTube don't want to be held accountable for potentially us promoting something which is, violates the rulings of the YouTube landscape. Again, we go back to when we started on Elite FPL and just uploading these videos to a platform called YouTube. At the time, it was just to share videos. That was it. The landscape's changed so much. And again, I reiterate, since coronavirus, it's got worse. It's got a hell of a lot worse regarding all that. And now you move forward into 2025, essentially, and you've got AI doing it all for you. It's getting worse and worse. I mean, I uploaded for 3 weeks' time. So I scheduled it for 3 weeks' time, a Total Stevo podcast. Right. And I got an email sent to me within 0.2 seconds of me scheduling it. It said, yeah, you're not allowed to upload this because it's got copyright music.
What?
Oh, yeah. Now, I always, on my podcast, always play music. And I have had emails from Spotify to say you must remove this music out of your podcast or we will remove the episode full stop. Now, because I am who I am, I'm like, I'm not going to be censored. I'm just going to be me. So take the episode down. I couldn't care less. If that was my job, I have to go through it all, edit it all out. And I think with a lot of independent content creators like Billy Mayhem, he struggles really, really, like really bad. Like he would be I know he doesn't do FPL. He's got nothing to do with FPL. In fact, he doesn't even like football, but he'd be a fascinating guy to speak to regarding mental health because I see it. Mm. He writes all these posts, very, very long posts on YouTube explaining why videos aren't coming out regularly and whatnot. And it does, I'm not going to lie, it does get to the point where, because we've had the dilemma at Elite FPL where it
is like livelihood's not dependent on it because he's an independent.
Yeah. He that's precisely it. He loves doing what he's doing, but he's got such a large fan base now where it's, wait a minute here. I've got a Patreon of about, well, I don't even know how many people he's got on it. Let's just say 60 people. That he has to kind of, again, the terminologies it sounds really harsh, but that he has to appease because the Patreons are paying for a kind of service which he said, well, you get this if you pay for this amount of money. Well, if you're not getting that for that money.
They want a certain number of videos per whatever. That's usually the standard, isn't it?
Yeah, and he will always say the same as what I say, which is, you've got to understand that I've got a full-time job here and this is just a hobby. But then on the other hand, there's a large group of people that are relying on his videos every single week. And you could tell it's breaking him. It's horrible. It really is horrible. And he's in that thing where it's like, well, I can't give up my job because that pays for everything. But I really want to do this because this is so fun and enjoyable. And I bring pleasure and enjoyment to other people's lives without me intending it to be that way. And again, I empathise with so many of these guys because Elite FPL are in exactly the same situation.
Steve, if I can prompt you, because I think you're kind of going there anyway, what would you say are the positives and the negatives of being an FPL content creator?
The positives are knowing that we do bring joy to a select group of people that tune into our videos, streams, or whatever, every week.
Yeah.
And again, because I'm one of them and I'm reliant on the likes of, I mean, I can put you in this category now. I'm reliant on certain channels to bring me some form of entertainment and joy. I'm kind of proud at the fact that we can provide that, shall we say, service for a small select group of people that enjoy what we do. And I think another thing for me, from a selfish point of view, is I get to express myself on a microphone in front of a camera and talking about whatever I need to talk about when it comes to FPL, football, or when we're live streaming, especially on a longer watch along, talking about whatever nonsense comes out of my mouth, because you can't be talking football for the whole 2.5 hours. It's impossible. So I think for me, it's in a way in which I can express myself and be able to entertain others. I mean, the negative side of things is the pressure from feeling that you need to, and maybe it's a pressure that we put on ourselves, but needing to appease, again, a group of people which rely on your streams that you do per week. And obviously the other negative side of things, as well, going back to Ricky Gervais, as Ricky Gervais says, is the whole thing of once you put yourself on the internet, you're going to have to expect lots of people to criticize. I mean, the first couple of years we did it, I was just abused. Like, it was horrific. I was just getting bombarded with messages on YouTube and on X about the content that we create. I mean, do you remember the video that went viral of me during
coronavirus? Where you're
really
reacting quite strongly to a bad game week? Is that?
Yes, it was when Jamie Vardy scored a penalty.
And I'm not even on X, and I managed to see it. Yeah, well, I wasn't on X then.
Yeah,
yeah, I know the one you
So
mean.
for context, basically, Jason was doing a live watch along of Leicester at home to Everton, I think, and I'd been listening to the stream the whole way, and I could tell Jason was he could not give a fuck about doing the stream. It was terrible. It was absolutely diabolical, to be completely frank. Right. No, it was West Bromwich Albion. It was West Brom. I don't know why that popped in my head, but he just did. It was West Brom. And it was absolutely diabolical. And all I could hear is basically Jason saying, Vardy hasn't touched the ball once, da-da-da-da-da-da. And to put context, Jamie Vardy was his captain. Right. I'm driving home from Hammersmith and I'm thinking, this is fucking brilliant. Already, Jason's fucked up. This is great. And then I get home and I've got it on the big screen when I used to be in the other room. And all of a sudden, Jason springs to life and he's like, I don't believe it. West Brom have conceded a penalty. Jamie Vardy's going to take it. And I'm just like, I don't fucking believe this. It's like the 89th minute or the 90th minute. I can't remember. It was really, really, really late on in the game. And then a few minutes later, West Brom concede another penalty. So Jamie Vardy has done nothing all game. And then he gets 2 penalties in the last few minutes of the match.
I should just make clear as well to any viewers who aren't Alex, that there is a rivalry, quite a big FPL rivalry between you and Jason.
Yes. Oh, well, especially then.
Yeah.
Especially then. And I was just like, Jason's live at the moment. I want to record my reaction, my reaction right now. Fuck it. Got my phone out. Record. This is ridiculously insane. Got my phone out. I didn't even have any clothing on. And I was just like, right, I'm going to record myself because I know that somebody watching this stream is going to see that I've posted something on X and they're going to tell Jason and then Jason's going to bring it up on stream because he knows that, I wonder what Steve-O's going to be like. So I recorded it and then bang, it just exploded, that particular video. And it went from 10,000 views to, I think eventually it got to something like 190,000 views or something, and people were mentioning me on their lives. Like this is how I became known, shall we say, in the FPL community because of that one video. People like Mark Southerns, Andy were made aware of me, and other people within the space were made aware of me because they'd seen this complete fucking lunatic losing his mind over a joke. It was essentially a private joke, but because I put it on the internet, which links me back to what I was saying about putting yourself out there on the internet, you are going to get a lot of people that have no idea who you are that will say what they think. And my God, they destroyed me on that video.
Negative, positive effects for the channel though? Because I'm sure it wouldn't have drawn people to.
No. It made people aware of who we were, but it didn't. I can't remember it having any real positive effect regarding subscribers. What I can tell you for free is doing collaborations like you're doing. They will. It's like with any YouTube, again, with any YouTube channel, you do collaborations, it will boost your subscribers.
Yeah.
Like, whatever the word, tenfold. But that specific video, not that I remember.
No.
But the abuse that I was getting was horrible. I didn't enjoy that at all. There was a lot of reposts or quoted posts, whatever it's bloody called, lots of comments. And at first I was reading them, but then it was getting to the point where I'm like, wait a minute here, these people are saying things that I'm getting really, really offended by, and I just turned it all off. I just got rid of it, really. But I think that's like one of the main negatives when you are a content creator that puts themselves out there on the internet.
Sure.
is that, in fact, coincidentally, just by pure coincidence, just now, I was feeling very vulnerable when speaking to the security guard at work, and she was asking me, "Oh, you're doing an interview about what exactly? A job interview?" And I went, no, it's just a friend of mine is wanting to do an interview about the channel that I do on YouTube. "Oh, what do you do on YouTube?" And I'm just like, because I can't really talk about it because it will link into the Total Stevo stuff. And I don't want that to be, because that's already happened at work and I had to delete a lot of things, shall we say, but we don't need to go into that. But I felt very vulnerable speaking to her about it, about the fact that, I do this thing on the internet and everything, but I can't really talk about it because if you find out what it is, it means that there's a chance then you'll find out about the Total Stealer podcast, which actually talks about work, and I can't really be doing that. And it just goes on and on and on. And I think that's the hard thing about what people don't understand.
She's probably thinking you're making snuff movies or something.
I'd admit that. I find for anybody that puts themselves out on the internet, it always comes with its major pluses. But my God, it can, like with Billy Mayhem and various other people that I'm aware of, and including myself, it can mess with you mentally, to be honest with you. And it's something that I find very difficult to talk about, because when you are an independent content creator, in a way, you can just pull the plug and that's it, done. And all these people that follow you, they move on to the next channel, because you never really understand what people think about what you do until it's gone. And it's a bit like, without wanting to get too morbid, it's like when someone passes away, isn't it? They will never know what you thought of them until they're passed away. And it's like everybody's really upset. They've come to the funeral and they're saying, "What a great guy you are, what a great woman you were." And it's like, why don't you say that at the time?
I say it, Steve.
Yeah.
I love you.
I did get it at one of the football meets that Nima puts on. He's another one to get on. And I'll never forget this bloke. I was speaking with Ricky Saunders. He's the Tottenham correspondent for Planet FPL. I've never met him before until then, and he's fantastic. We were chatting away funny enough, about his job and my job. And this guy comes over to us, and he spoke to us, and he just said, "Look, I'm really, really sorry, but do you mind if I have a word with Stevo?" And Ricky went, "Yeah, sure." And I was just like, "All right, mate." And he just basically poured his heart out, and he just said, "I just want to express to you how much your videos have helped me through difficult times." I'm not going to lie, he had a few drinks, and he was tearing up, and I felt like tearing up because I was thinking, there's a bloke that's, I'm just guessing this, in his late 40s, early 50s. He's in his 50s, and he's bordering on tearing up because of videos of me talking about real life and revolving it around FPL.
That is one of the big differences in your channel. I mean, I know I take the piss sometimes with some of my... I've made a couple of parody videos of you on Twitter, but I mean, that is, particularly when you were the driving force of the particular video. I mean, what... I'm trying to think how I was going to put this. Yeah, I mean, that obviously is, I've put it here in my notes, as a Steve-O unique approach, Office and Mr. Byrne impressions, but also talking about...
I've never done a Mr. Byrne impression, have I?
You've done a Mr. Byrne impression, mate. I remember it well. But that obviously appeals to the audience. I mean, I'm guessing you're going to say you couldn't make these types of videos unless you could talk about those things.
No, I could.
You could?
Again, I'm not trying to plug Patreon whatsoever, but on my Patreon, I take pride in the fact that I go into a lot of detail regarding fantasy. No, I'm not suggesting Mark and As black box style. I don't mean stats like that.
What I meant, Steve, is wouldn't you get bored? I mean, if that's all you were doing.
No, because I wouldn't be doing at this point. I wouldn't be doing live streams then. If you mean doing live streams and only specifically talking football,
right?
Oh yeah, you're completely right. I couldn't do it. It's impossible. You watch some of the biggest channels out there, like Mark Goldbridge. He can't even do football for 2 hours. He has to break up with other conversation pieces. In fact, some of the most popular subject matters that he covers has got nothing to do with football. It's more to do with relationships and films and TV. That's where he gets the most interaction. Right. Talking about Newcastle versus Man City and various other Premier League teams, there's only so much you can talk about. But with our specific channel, could I, on a live stream, talk football for 2.5? No. It's impossible. No one can. Unless you're James of Planet FPL.
Steve, that kind of goes into another thing I wanted to ask you about, because, as I say, I am genuinely a massive fan of your channel, and you'll know what to say in that,
Yeah.
And one of the things you do that a lot of channels don't do is those live streams during games. And I was wondering, A, how you find that, and then also, why do you think no one really does it? Because if I see a live stream on during the 3 p.m. kickoffs with someone who can talk about the 8 games in an entertaining way, rather than me having to scroll through BBC Sport or whatever, I'll listen to that. Do you know what I mean? But maybe why other people don't do it as well.
Well, I know the answer to that is because they openly have admitted, and this is the great thing about live, Gary, they can't edit it out. So idiots like me that's listening to it live go, oh, that's an interesting statement that person's made. Oh, they weren't supposed to say that, but they said it because it's live.
Right.
This is great. So I'll clip it and I'll put it out in a comedic way on X by putting it together with an extras quote or an office quote. That's normal. But they don't do it because they spend time with their family. That's their family time. They openly say that their job is Monday to Friday, and then the weekends is devoted to family, which is fine. That's on them.
Except deadline streams, I guess.
Except the deadline streams, which we've discussed before, which is their money, their cash cow, essentially. That's what brings in the real big money for them. But anyway, I think that's one of the main reasons why they want to actually have their social time with their friends. Yeah, ironically, if you go on their feeds, they spend their whole time on X talking about the games. I don't understand why they don't do it. I know for a fact that Andy has done watch-alongs before. I have personally listened into them. I think they're really, really enjoyable. I think that listening into a live stream which is connected to a game which you play and is being presented by somebody that you can resonate with is one of the most enjoyable feelings imaginable, really. I don't know. It's because you know what that person's going through. Like, even when listening into a Jason live stream, if he ever does solo streams, I find it so refreshing because he's talking about something that he's passionate about, and then if something's happening in the game, he will tell us what's going on, and then of course the relevance is to FPL. But what was the question again? Sorry.
The best ever live stream I watched, Steve-O, was I don't think it was the end of last season. I think it was the season before, when you had a different correspondent for every game. I think it was you and Jason. I mean, it did help that I had a bloody good season and a good last day to the season as well. But
yes,
I think you streamed for like 4 hours, and it was just an absolute pleasure. Like, I think I planned to listen to it maybe for an hour and then do some work, and I ended up 4.5 hours later, I was still listening to it because it's just
it angers me, to be honest with you, and this is why I'm really happy that I've connected with the likes of Ray, Shane, Kieran, Alf, even yourself, and various other members of the community, because those streams where there's multiple matches going on and you've got different correspondents per game, God, it makes life so much easier. It really does, because you're getting reactions from different people without knowing what's going on. So I will literally only be listening to Man United. No, I won't be doing Man United. I'll be listening to Everton versus Fulham. Jason will have Man United versus Everton. You've then got whomever, Ray listening to Nottingham Forest versus Spurs, and then you'll have Kieran watching Southampton versus Wolves, and then you've got Shane doing Man City versus Liverpool.
And the other nice touch is you ban people from mentioning the scores in the chat, so it's a genuine reaction, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And I'd like to think that the other guys that are corresponding play along, and the different personalities that are happening at the same time and the different reactions, and you've got to be able to control it as well. I usually take over host duties at that point. I kind of like do the Jeff Stelling type role, in which I go to Jason, I go to Shane, I'll go to Ray, and whomever else is joining us.
We're getting a goal in the Aston Villa.
Well, it wouldn't be that. It would literally just be Gary. Can you just tell us what's going on in the Liverpool versus Everton game? We haven't actually heard much what is happening. Could you let us know? And then you'd be saying, well, at the moment, this is pretty boring. Actually, Salah's not really put. Oh, wait a minute, Diaz has just scored, and we're all just there like, what? Sorry, what? And then you, as the listener, is like, I'm relying on these guys to give me the scores. I don't have a clue what's going on here. And all of a sudden, they've just gone to Gary, FPL have a beer. He's watching the Liverpool versus Everton game. And all of a sudden, he's telling us it's a crap game. And then bang, Diaz has scored. And getting a group of people like that together, corresponding on football matches, is just absolutely magical. And I'm really gutted that it's difficult to do it these days. And I never understand why.
It is a bit like, I can't remember what was on Sky, that show which Jeff Sterling used to host, but it is a bit like that, but with an FPL focus, isn't it, I guess?
Yeah, and I'm amazed it will happen one day. There will be a channel on Sky dedicated to FPL for 3 p.m. kickoffs. It will happen.
The FPL family and stuff on there already, don't they?
Yeah, they've got like the big players that go on. Yeah, they do the podcast, but there'll be, I don't know when. I would maybe next year, but they'll have Kelly Summers hosting, and then you'll have Gianni watching one game, Holly Shand, and all the other usual crew watching each individual match, and it will just be FPL related. It will happen. It will happen. And to be completely honest, I genuinely do believe this. And people that don't know who I am will know who Elite FPL are. They'll be thinking, who the fuck does this guy think he is? Like, he seems to think that he's some oracle that came out with these ideas. And it's like, no, you can go back in the history. We were the first channel that started doing FPL deadline streams. We were the first channel that did watch-alongs. And we were the first
FPL vlogs.
Vlogs, 3 p.m. kickoffs. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute these other larger channels have copied. But what I do know regarding the Discord is that they copied us. I know that for fact, because we helped a couple of the big channels out with their Discord. And they went on to much bigger and better things. But certainly we came up with the Discord idea first. I know that much. The deadline streams, I always remember, why has no one ever done this? I was just on my mobile phone in that room. Not that anybody can see, but in that room next door to me, in this tiny little bedroom, I just have my phone, none of this laptop microphone stuff. I just have my mobile phone, and I'd have my PlayStation on, and I'd just be answering questions about the hour before deadline. And like with any content creator, they get inspired by this and then they decide, I'll do it myself. But of course, like, we go back to the mainstream content creators, because they got a bigger pool. They'll have like 2,000 people watching, while we've got like 200 people watching, for instance.
Yeah.
But because they're the mainstream channel, all these people are watching and why has no one ever done a deadline stream before? We don't understand.
Steve-O, one sort of last question on the content creation side. Actually, I've got two more, but they're more fun questions. Would you ever, so we've kind of discussed for the viewers the difference between an independent channel and a more mainstream. Would you ever think about getting rid of talking about The Office, being able to swear, being able to be yourself in order to turn Elite FPL into a mainstream channel?
No,
No.
I couldn't do it.
Why?
There's no.
Why?
Because that would mean I'd have to become a robot. I'd have to become a slave, like my mate Steve says. I'd have to become a slave to YouTube. I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want Jason to do it. I don't want me to do it. I don't want to become this person who's like, I'm not being funny, but when you, whether it's you personally or other content creators out there interview others, you can tell they're holding back on certain things. They refuse to swear. They refuse to say certain things that may get them into a bit of trouble, and they can't risk. They can't risk their clean image, shall we say?
Can I touch a second, Steve?
And
it was interesting. I remember you saying this when I was on your stream last week about when there'll be a live stream between two people on one of the mainstream channels, and then one of them accidentally swear, and then they go like, "We can be ourselves now for the rest of the." That was what I found that really interesting. When you were talking about that, I hadn't thought about it that way before.
It's very peculiar. Well, it's not peculiar. I get it, but when you have got an image which is being clean and is, as I always keep stating, what will always push you for the YouTube algorithm if your channel appeals to children. If you can sit your child in front of the TV while you're watching it, I'm just going to use a Deadline stream as an example. If you're watching a Deadline stream and you're just making notes about FPL, but you're having to babysit your child, can you sit your child in front of the TV with whomever on? If the answer is yes, then well done to you. You're adhering to everything YouTube wants. You cannot sit a child in front of YouTube channel with, say, someone like myself and Jason, and then all of a sudden we use this. I will bleep myself out because I don't want to get you into trouble by saying the C word or calling someone the W word or whatever. I don't want to do that. Oh no, sorry. I don't want to stop myself from doing that. I just want to be me. And yes, don't get me wrong. Can I censor myself? Of course I can. Could I do that all the time, though? No.
Would you want to when you're spending? I mean, you spend what 7-8 hours a week live streaming or doing some sort of content.
Like I say, I can do it on Patreon. I can do a half-hour podcast going through fixtures, and that's it done within half an hour.
It's interesting, Steve, that you do that the more professional content. But you do that to the content that doesn't go out to the mainstream.
Yeah. I would normally do it, but for some reason, I don't know, this is completely going off subject, but for some reason, every time I go on whoscored.com, which has been my sponsorship for the past 20 years, for some reason, every time I go on it, the computer seems to crash, and I don't know why. But I used to do a lot of on live streams, the history between teams and looking at the home form and away form and the best captaincy options. I used to do it all the time, but I don't know. I think because we just predominantly stick to live streaming, we can still go through that stuff. But nowadays, because for whatever reason, my computer crashes on whoscored.com, I just can't access that information straight away. And because of my busy schedule, shall we say, finding time to be writing down notes for half an hour, whatever, it just won't happen. So that's why even with you, when we went live on air, I just said, just hit the button. Let's just chat. Let's just crack on. And yeah, I don't get me wrong. I do find it ironic that I do a lot of I wouldn't say it's professional stuff, but the more, shall we say, content which people would find genuinely really interesting because it's very informative. Finding out that, oh, wait a minute, we all think that Crystal Palace are really, really good at home. No, they're not. They're rubbish. Because if you look here, they've only won once this season, but they lost 4. They've only scored 2 goals, but conceded 10. So actually, Selhurst Park at the moment, if you want to back a captain, maybe do it against Crystal Palace, just as a simple example.
I'll say this, maybe this is just me, maybe your other viewers wouldn't agree, but when I'm watching you guys and you're talking about the more human side of stuff, when you start talking about football, that's when I go, You know what I mean? I don't really want to hear the
No,
stuff. I want to hear the
FPL
other
Juice has that exact problem. I know a big fan of our show, PK7, literally says that. Ray is another one. I don't want to hear you talking about football. I want to hear you talk about life.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to that whole trying to make it a balancing act of how can we appease the people that are here for. I mean, it's a bit like that joke in The Simpsons, isn't it? You know, with the Homer Simpson and the all-you-can-eat restaurant. It's come for the food, stay for the freak. You know, it's the same with us. It's come for the FPL, but stay for the real-life chats.
Yeah.
And I think me and Jason have got the right balance, to be fair. I mean, most of our live streams are, I would say, 70% FPL talk and 30% real life talk. But I think the real life talk comes more in the watch alongs. The watch alongs are very difficult to do, especially when you've got, say, 100 people watching and the chat is just dead and you're like, I don't know what to talk about. Please.
0-0 games.
Oh God, there have been some absolute dregs. I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head right now, but let's just say, for argument's sake, Nottingham Forest against Wolves, and it's 0-0 at half time. There's been 0 shots on goal, just 2 teams passing the ball around, and you're there like, what am I doing this for? Like, the only reason why we do it is because it has an importance to the rivalry between myself and Jason, or if it has an importance in the world of FPL. I'm not. That's a really ridiculous example, but if, for instance, it was Man City versus Liverpool, I've captained Haaland and Jason's captained Salah. Right, here we go. Now this is like proper entertainment because you've got 2 people that have captained 2 different individuals playing against one another. And Jason's going through the emotions of Salah. I'm going through the emotions of Haaland. And then, of course, you've got the community that have got their own emotions evolved around who they've captained. And they're the best streams, I think. And then, of course, during the stream, we are going to have, like most live streams are, or watch-alongs are, it's just 2 people down a pub having a conversation about whatever they fancy talking about. It's why I really appreciated doing I don't know if you were, I'm sure you were, the 5-hour stream we did recently with Shane.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I'm not sure I was listening to the whole thing, but I was there for most of it.
Yeah, that was. You need to have someone that you can bounce off.
Yeah.
You really do.
He's very good.
Yeah, he's fantastic, Shane. And if you don't have anybody to bounce off, my God, you're screwed. And it's like with everyday conversation, though, isn't it? You could meet someone for the first time, and it's just like, Jesus Christ. What am I talking to you for? Whereas there's someone else where it's like, bloody hell, I've been with you for an hour. It felt like 5 minutes because the conversation just flows and flows and flows. So,
Steve,
yeah.
I'm going to ask you 2 more questions before we get on to mental health. First of all, how did you come up with the name Elite FPL? And secondly, a bit of a strange one, and I'll be interested to see how you answer this. Have you ever been recognised out in the street by non...
You're going to love that. Elite FPL is easy. So we were Torbay Elite. And then Dan said, look, I think that rather than us calling ourselves, I don't know, whatever on YouTube, let's just take away the Torbay and just call ourselves Elite FPL. And then Jason came up with probably my favourite logo. You won't have a clue what it is, but it was like a rainbow-coloured logo of ours with a white background. It's gorgeous. That's the best one. So that was Dan's idea. I've been wanting to answer this question for a while. Have you been spotted? Not because I'm like, oh, I'm really egotistical. I'm so happy I've been recognised. It's happened a lot.
Right.
Bizarrely. Yeah, it's very weird.
For no one who's watching it, Joe earlier on, who's been doing this for God knows how long, he's never been recognised. Which really surprised me. Yeah. So sorry, Steve, I didn't want to...
No, that is surprising. All right, okay,
yeah.
Wow. Considering he lives somewhere in Somerset, doesn't he?
Yeah, a little town. But anyway, so share your experiences, please.
So the first one, this was absolutely crazy, was I was in a petrol station up the road from where I live. And this guy just comes up to me in the Asda uniform and went, "You're Steve-O, aren't you?" And I went, "How the hell do you know that?" Now, my immediate reaction is he knows me from Tesco. And he went, "Oh, I'm a niche." And I went, and my brain was thinking, wait a minute, a niche, Discord, Sunday surgery. And would you believe it? One of our most regular contributors at the time to Sunday surgery was a niche for like 3 years. He works up the road in a petrol station.
Wow. And I
was just like, what the we just shook each other's hands, had a quick conversation. Another one was I was in the gym, and he didn't directly recognize me as my name, but I was just on the bench press, and this guy just was stood next to me. I'm thinking, oh, for fuck, God, here we go. Let's hear the line. How long are you going to be, mate? Or how many more sets? And he went, "Sorry to disturb you. Do I know you from somewhere?" And I was just like, I very much doubt it. No. I've seen you on YouTube. Do you do things for fantasy football? I was just like, yeah, I do. Yeah. You, what's it called? Elite FPL, isn't it? I went, yeah. I've seen your channel a couple of times. Yeah. And we just spoke for like 20 minutes in the gym. Just crazy. I was walking down the street near to where I live, and this van drove past, did an emergency stop, and went,
"Emergency stop?"
Yeah. And went, "Elite FPL, mate." I went, "What the fuck? I love your channel," and just drove off. My favourite one, though, this is mental, was I was in Oxford Street, and I was just waiting for one of my closest friends. And I was just looking around, I was thinking, bloody hell, there's a lot of Nottingham Forest fans around. Why is there so many? Oh, yeah, of course. It's the playoff final. Yeah. So I just stood there waiting around, and then all of a sudden I just hear this. "Steve-O." I went, "No, that can't be me." "Steve-O." I looked up, and I'm looking at Mark Southerns.
Really?
And I just pointed at him and I went, "Mark Southerns, what the fuck are you doing here?" And he went, "Hello, Steve-O, mate." Again, just chatted for like 3 or 4 minutes because obviously he was in a hurry to get to Nottingham Forest. That was fucking mental. Mark Southerns.
Yeah.
I was just like, what? I just immediately got on the phone to Jason and said, "You're never going to believe who I just met." Like, yeah, going to the FPL meets, I've been to a few, well, I think 3 of them. They're really surreal because it's one of these really weird atmospheres where it's everybody knows who everybody is,
but nobody knows who everyone is.
Yeah. And most of the people, I would say 95% of the people in there are happy to engage with whoever, but there are some which they look at me and they're like, "Oh, it's that idiot." You can just tell him, you know what it's like in real life when you're...
I was talking to Joe about this earlier on, and he was saying he's a very small bloke, where you are quite a... You're a very quite large, well-built, tattooed bloke, so I imagine who recently has been a skinhead as well. That does maybe give out a certain
vibe. There's the husky laugh. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to... I'm used to... I mean, I was in Tesco for 16 years, so I kind of know how to deal with the general public. And the way the easiest way I go about it is that I don't put on this bravado of, "Look at me, I'm 6'3", I'm like a Men Health cover magazine model." I'm not, by the way. I've got the biggest belly on the planet. But the point being is that I've got a general idea of what people think of me automatically. So I kind of know how to, within reason, approach people when people approach me.
You're quite softly spoken, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm not like this loud bravado, typical Ibiza holiday making individual. I'm quite an introverted person, to be honest with you, but I can imagine what people think of me. And certainly at the FPL meets, it is like I said, when you meet most of the people, they're all friendly and they always do the usual line of, "You're Steve, we know who you are," da, da, da. And they always say something like, "I love it when you," and then whatever it may be. Usually, I don't know if you remember this. It was a video I released when I was on Dartmoor, and a very, very large cow appeared.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, a lot of people for some reason come up to me and they say, "We love that video. It was so funny."
In my
I'm thinking,
Steve-O impression videos I've been doing, when I'm focusing on the wheelie bins, that should really be a cow. There's no cows around East London, though, unfortunately.
no. I find it so weird when people bring that up, because I'm like, of all the things that I've done on Elite FPL, that's the one thing you remember, the fact that a cow walked past and I just did a Booker T impression. I mean, it's just like, yeah, this is just really, really weird. But then after a while, you just to finish, just after a while, you realise that we're just humans. I mean, Dread FPL makes the point that we're just humans at the end of the day, and just talk to one another without putting individuals on a pedestal. Because don't get me wrong, there are a few content creators that you can tell they've got a bit of an ego, shall we say, and it's quite difficult to approach them. Let's just say that.
They know who they are in